When the sun comes up on America, across open fields, small towns, and city streets, a new day begins. And here, we rise with it. This is where hard work meets headlines, where truth matters, and America wakes up informed.
An interesting week.
They all are.
This is your country. This is your morning. This is Daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. America, let's do it together.
Love you, Ivy.
Love you too.
And it starts right now.
Welcome to Daybreak Live again from Washington, D.C. Nice to see you here today as we fight for you from the foxhole of freedom. We just moved the foxhole today. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, Senator Lindsey Graham, who died late Saturday, has been replaced by his younger sister in the Senate, who is expected to finish his term while the Republican primary is held to fill the next 6-year term. Number two, President Trump and CENTCOM unleashing another round of brutal attacks on Iran after the Islamic regime tried to exert control over the Strait of Hormuz. And number three, let's start here today. A major announcement from President Trump postponed from last night. They say out of respect for the passing of Senator Lindsey Graham. We're told that anyway. However, reporting from several outlets now indicates the president is ready to release millions of pages of newly unclassified documents on fraud associated with the 2020 election. A number of outlets are reporting the information is so damning that it could conclude that both of Georgia's current senators, Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff, are both illegitimate and not fairly elected in the Peach State. So I'll begin today with Jonathan Gilliam, a former FBI agent, police officer, Navy SEAL. If this proves to be true, it could end up upending the entire political structure here in D.C. Jonathan, good morning. The internet buzzing today about this upcoming event on Thursday night. Apparently, it will come with literally truckloads of documents. I'm told millions of documents pointing out how bad actors, both domestic and foreign, work to undermine our elections. I'm wondering what you're hearing, but it would be remarkable. And I've been making phone calls to people in Georgia. They say, yes, there's Georgia law that if it was illegitimate, those senators could be recalled under Georgia law. They could be recalled under federal law. Of course, it would take 2/3 of the Senate to do that. But what are you hearing about this series of revelations? I'm told millions of documents.
Well, I'll tell you what I really hear from people is that they just, it's hard, Steve, it's hard for people to believe that anything will change. I know you said that it would rock the core of D.C. I mean, if President Trump hasn't been able to rock the core of D.C., I don't know if them actually finding evidence that would call for a recall of these two individuals from Georgia. I just don't know if we can get there. I don't know if people in power will make the moves to pull these people back and risk changing the way things are, the kind of corrupt and seedy way that things are. And that's what I'm hearing. I don't know what the truth is. I don't know what the chances are. And because it has to do with the voting, I'm not sure if we will know. So, but listen, if this could work and this could be a gut punch to the voting system, that perhaps it could change things. I'm really hoping that something occurs from this.
Well, I'm with you, and you're right. The pessimism among people across this country is at a very high level. And why wouldn't it be? They don't see people being held to account for crimes that are pretty obvious to many of us that have been committed in a variety of places, and nobody gets arrested. Low-level people, mid-level people, but never a high-profile person being arrested, save for maybe John Bolton, who has now pled guilty to taking documents illegally. But the American news media, I want to play bite 5 here, Anthony, because the American news media, to me, has been complicit in a lot of this. Jonathan, listen to this.
I don't want to look back, but you did take your case to court about that. You took your case to court about your allegations against the election. Let me ask you,
There's no question about it. The election was rigged. The facts are in, and it's still being litigated. Let's go.
You did take your case to court more than 60 times and didn't win those cases.
I won a lot of court cases.
Just to button that up, though, sir. Just to button that up.
What are you talking about?
How
the election
worried are you?
Are we talking about the election
Let's talk about here and now. Let's talk about
the
here and
election
now.
of 2020?
You see, they won't hear it. That's Chris Milker of NBC News. And when you have a complicit news media that refuses to report the facts to the people as we try to do here every day, it is undermining to the country, not just to Republicans. The truth matters, doesn't it?
Sure. And Steve, listen, let's start from the very beginning. The Second Amendment and the freedom of press has been bastardized, just like all the rest of the freedoms that we have, mostly by the left and by the right in their inability to defend these things. But the freedom of the press, that was a lie that was used immediately. That meant freedom of speech to say what you want and the freedom to disseminate it with the printing press, which was the technology at the time. It was not freedom of an organized media to say whatever they want, whenever they want, for the destruction of the country, and to lie and get good politicians and good leaders out of office. That's not what freedom of the press is all about. That is a lie that's been created, and they use that because it's a company. These people are professional liars, just like professional football players that play in the NFL are professionals. And so I think if we start with that, Steve, and we look at that, what we'll see is that when you look at President Trump and what he says and does, he's doing it for a reason. That's to get effective leadership and effective results done. Media is not like that. It is not about answers. It's about narrative and about propaganda. And that is.
Well, let me touch on the narrative because I think you've hit something incredibly important there, Jonathan, the narrative. When you see people like Kristen Welker there on Meet the Press at NBC and a host of others that I'm in the room with this week at the White House and so forth, they desensitize the American people. Well, you've had 65 cases thrown out. Well, you litigated it, you lost. You went to court. Most of those were thrown out on technicalities. It's never been to the point of discovery in any of these cases. Well, the discovery might be coming on Thursday night. We'll see. But when you have the national news media working to basically flood us with information that there's nothing here, and then something shows up, I wonder how many people actually take it seriously. And that's a real question because they've been told time and time again, there's nothing here. Wait a second, we've got 1 million documents, 5 million documents, whatever it turns out to be, and they might just ignore it. That's a concern.
It's also a danger, and that's what when you say a concern, I agree with you. But it's also a huge danger because, Steve, just like they keep saying there's something here, and then they never produce that. Look at Hunter Biden's laptop, for instance. How many conservatives said they had a copy of his laptop hard drive? We never saw it. We don't even know for exactly what was on that laptop. So these are buildups, and then on the case of the left, it's breakdowns. They don't want anybody to know the reality of what information is out there. So the American people, where they're at right now is they're so desensitized, as you put it, that influencers on social media have really the most influence now on people's attitudes, far beyond the media and far beyond what politicians say may be right or wrong. And I find that very disturbing.
It is disturbing. All right, Jonathan, hold your position there. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the president in the Oval Office last night saying the gloves are off with Iran. In fact, he says that we will now be in charge. We will be the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. The overnight strikes, devastating. We'll talk about it after this on Daybreak. I'm going to play bite. All right, the president popped into the Oval Office last night for an impromptu gathering, and he had a lot to say about what's going on with Iran. We have dropped devastating hits there over the last 12 to 16 hours. Here's part of what he said.
And then they broke up that deal immediately because they found out there was something in the deal they didn't like. And they're wired differently, and we're not going to put up with it. We are just going forward. We're attacking them tonight. We're taking out all of their capability for anything having to do with the Strait, with the Hormuz Strait. And I think in the end, we will end up just controlling the whole thing. And what they're doing is being very foolish, very stupid, and they've treated people horribly. They've killed 52,000 protesters so far that we can determine. It might be more than that, but 52,000 protesters have been killed, and it's really a terrible situation. But we'll have
Jonathan Gilliam back with me now. Jonathan, the impact of these hits seem far more intense than we've seen, well, in months now. It seems the gloves are off. I know you've been watching these developments as well. What do you take from this?
Well, I think President Trump is starting to go a little bit more on the offensive, and I've been waiting for this because, Steve, I'm not sure if the president understands this. I know he has way more information than we have, and I tell you, it's remarkable the way that he has played this out to really wring out any diplomacy that is possible. However, I never hear him mention this. I never hear his advisors, and quite frankly, media never mentions it either, which is the caliphate, the Islamic caliphate. That is the foundation of the existence of this Iranian regime. And their program or their plan is an eternal plan. They are dead set on the elimination of Israel, domination of that region, and eventually domination of the world, and the return or the establishment of their caliph, which is, their Messiah, basically. And so, as crazy as this sounds, if you take that into account, I don't think anybody would be surprised by the way Iran acts, because everything is a game for them. It's a game, and the end of that game is the caliphate. And so I think President Trump going on the offensive is great. I think this is what he should have done. I think he's on target and on track. However, if if it's just about the Straits of Hormuz, that's a problem. If it was only about the nuclear issue at first, that was a problem as well, because the Straits of Hormuz and the nuclear issue are both really side effects, or those are assets or tools and trades that Iran uses to further this movement towards the caliphate. And that has to be looked at, and it has to be understood, and it has to be eliminated. Because the other problem, Steve, that we have with this is that while they're doing all this work over there, look at what's happening here. And this movement in New York and many of the other places where activists and influencers are outwardly saying that they either want communism, socialism, or Sharia law, and you can't divert, or you can't separate those things, because the Red Green Alliance always works together. That's communism and Islam. They work together a lot wherever they're trying to move forward in a region. And so I think this has to be looked at.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's an important discussion that I don't think we've had here nearly enough. The Red Green Alliance here in America, whether it's New York City or Seattle or Chicago or pick your poison, it's now in Denver from a recent primary election. There will be 6 or 8 or maybe even 10 members of the so-called Democratic Socialists of America in office. Now, I don't think they do Democrats any favors, because I don't think they're Democrats. They're radicals, they're revolutionaries, and I think the Democrat Party is in real trouble going forward because of this. But it also should not be underestimated by you and me and this country and people who believe in America, should it?
No, absolutely not. Because you remember, Steve, in real estate, for instance, it only takes a day to demo a house, but it takes a long time to build it. It took 250 years really to get this country to where it was really, well, not quite 250 years, but that's where we're at, But it won't take long. You get enough socialists in, and this is another thing, Steve, that I don't understand. When it comes to warfare, for instance, we fight warfare based on politics, not elimination of the enemy or the threat. I find that perplexing. But also, we allow those enemies to come into this nation, and we don't use our own laws. There is no other form of government. Socialism, you're free to say what you want about it. You're free to go out and espouse what you want about socialism, communism, or Sharia law. But it's against the law to attempt to establish those as the rule of law.
That's correct.
I don't understand why we don't focus on that. These people, as soon as they organize, they should be arrested.
The Constitution of the United States, as you well know, Jonathan, establishes a Republican form of government. It guarantees it. In fact, that word guarantees a Republican form of government, and they are undermining it, and it is a threat. And when we dismiss it, look, I've said this for a long time. What we tolerate, the next generation will embrace. So tolerance is a dangerous thing. Jonathan, great seeing you this morning. Really appreciate you getting up early. It's been a good conversation, sir.
Hey, you got it, Steve. Hey, I'm in Arizona. I'm going to bed.
Fair enough. Greatly appreciate it. All right, Jonathan Gillum here on the program. All right, so a big week in Washington as the Iran strikes are ramping up. And again, Thursday night, the president is expected to hold a primetime address to the nation. We're led to believe that will have to do with the 2020 election. Are people so past it that they won't pay attention? I hope not. The information I'm getting is that it's very damning information that's going to come out. Tulsi Gabbard began to rip back this curtain. Others are working in coordination. Could be millions of documents. We don't know what's in them yet, but it's worth paying very close attention. I'll be back on Daybreak after this. All right, for Governor Henry McMaster, it didn't take very long to replace Lindsey Graham after his sudden passing over the weekend at the age of 71. His sister, Darlene Graham Nordone, is filling that seat. President Trump wanted this to happen. Apparently, it was put in place very quickly. She'll serve as an interim senator. Now, there's no indication she'll run for the seat, but there will be a primary in South Carolina to fill that seat. And a number of prominent Republicans, including Nancy Mace, Ralph Norman, and others, putting their names up for consideration. We'll see who actually runs, but we'll know the field here in the next few days. No announcement yet on Lindsey Graham's funeral. I would anticipate that the president would attend Lindsey Graham's funeral. I would expect it would happen in South Carolina. Lindsey Graham grew up in a small town in one room in the back of the parents' liquor store, both of his parents dying at a young age, and he raised his sister. She was 13, he was 22 when both of his parents passed away. So a close relationship, and she will now be the senator, at least for the time being, in South Carolina. Did you know that most people don't get enough DHA, the key nutrient in your brain that relies for memory and focus? DHA, necessary for healthy brain function, may help metabolic health as well. In fact, inadequate DHA levels in the brain have been linked to Alzheimer's disease. The good news is that Longevity contains 180 milligrams DHA and 250 milligrams of omega-3 oils per serving. Longevity is something we use at home every day. It's a complete nutritional support that gives you everything you need to age well. You can try it, and you're going to like this product. Go to longevitywellness.co, enter the promo code Gruber at checkout for a special discount. My son, who plays football, uses it pre-workout and post-workout. If Ivy's feeling a little slow that day, she'll take Longevity. Boom, she's back in it. I don't care how old you are. This is something that can help put a pep in your step. LongevityWellness.co. Enter the promo code Gruber at checkout. You get a special discount, and you can trust this product because we do. Coming up, Don Brown will be here. We're going to continue the conversations about the 2020 election and what might happen on Thursday night. Daybreak will continue after this. All right, let's get a legal look at it now and figure out where this all stands with what's happening on Thursday night. Now, we are told that President Trump is giving a primetime series of remarks at 9 o'clock Thursday night, a primetime address to the nation. We're told it's going to focus on the 2020 election and newly unclassified or declassified documents that I am told are smoking guns. Now, what does that mean? We'll have to wait and find out. Don Brown joining me now. He ran for Senate in North Carolina. He's also a former Navy JAG officer and a former federal prosecutor. That's why we need a legal side of this. Don, good morning.
Good morning to you, Steve. Good to be with you this morning.
Now, one of the things that's floating around on social media is that there are, and it's just a rumor, I will put it out there, it is a rumor that Donald Trump will declare both Senators Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff of Georgia as being illegitimate senators. Now, there's a process where the Senate could declare a seat vacant or even remove a senator, but that takes 2/3 of the vote of the United States Senate. Of course, the Democrats would never support that. So then I turned to Georgia law. I'm not familiar with Georgia law. I've been making a lot of phone calls, and there are mechanisms to remove somebody if it's proven that the election was rigged and that they were not legitimately elected. What are your thoughts as you see these stories start to come out?
Well, first of all, I was very involved in working Georgia during the 2020, in the aftermath of the 2020 election scam, as I call it. Georgia was one of the hottest messes in the country. There were literally thousands upon thousands of illegitimate votes that were counted that should never have been counted. Biden ostensibly won by about 11,000 votes. I don't believe that for a second. There was massive fraud in DeKalb County and Fulton County. And if you look at even the litigation over the ballot marking device machines, there was a case called Curling versus Rafflesberger. It was overheard by a Democrat judge, Amy Totenberg, and that case was filed 2 years or so before the 2020 elections. And Judge Totenberg, at the end of the case, found that the systems were unreliable, could be easily manipulated, and ordered the Secretary of State, Brad Rafflesberger at the time, and the company to come up with something more reliable. She did not grant the plaintiff's request of using paper ballots. But I believe that I don't believe for a second that, first of all, that Biden won Georgia, and if Biden did not win Georgia, I have a tough time believing those two clowns that are currently occupying the Senate seats in Georgia did. So it'll be interesting to see what the president says. I think the evidence is there, and I'm glad that we're getting to the bottom of it. At least, hopefully, we'll know Thursday night.
Yeah, nobody believes that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. Democrats don't even believe that Joe Biden got millions more votes than any other candidate in history from either party, including their own beloved Barack Obama. Nobody believes that. Now, let me ask you about Brad Raffensperger. People in Georgia, Republicans, conservatives, do not like him, think he's trying to protect his own reputation. What is your take on Brad Raffensperger? Because he is a Republican, and yet he seems to have tried to thwart every effort to investigate what really happened.
Well, Raffensperger is, of course, the Georgia Secretary of State, and Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State before him. Georgia is the only state in the country that has dominion in every county. That dominion was brought in by Brian Kemp when he was Secretary of State, and Brian's chief of staff, if I've got this right, became the marketing director for Dominion. And if you go back to the history of the 2020 election in Georgia, there was that famous phone call when Trump was simply asking what was happening. Something wasn't right. He was talking to Raffensperger. Somebody leaked that call. But between the two of them, Kemp did not call the Georgia legislature in the special session. And part of the reason that Raffensperger is no longer going to be Secretary of State of Georgia is people just don't trust him down there. And a lot of it has to do with the perception of a lack of election integrity. When you look at the so-called investigations that went on in Georgia, you remember the famous video from the State Farm Arena where the Republican observers leave, and the next thing you know, the Democrats start pulling ballots out and start counting them. And Raffensperger says, no, there's nothing to see here. Nobody believes there's nothing to see here. You don't just do that. You send your Republican observers home, say, we'll start counting in the morning, and then we have them red hot on video pulling boxes of ballots out, and Raffensperger tries to explain that away. There's a feeling in Georgia, I believe, and I don't live in Georgia, I live next door in North Carolina, but there's a feeling that he has closed his eyes to a lot of things for a number of unknown reasons when it comes to preserving election integrity in Georgia,
right.
And hence he was defeated. So good for
200
this
FBI
Republican
agents on the ground there, we're told. 200 FBI agents that have been going through this material, and they're also declassifying information at the federal level, so this could be very important. Now, here's something that has been in the ether, if you will. The Chinese Communist Party infiltrated as many as 18 states' databases, voting databases. If this turns to be true, and I'm led to believe that one of those states might be Alaska, how does Lisa Murkowski vote against the SAVE Act if she finds out that the Chinese Communist Party was able to access voter data registration and so forth in her state? This could be a game changer for the Save America Act, potentially. Your thoughts?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, Murkowski is one of those that's got to get off the fence, and the Republican leadership in the Senate, including John Thune, they talk out of both ends of their mouth. They say they want the SAVE Act, but they're not willing to modify the filibuster to get the SAVE Act passed. So you can't have it both ways. The fact of the matter is, some of them don't want it. Why don't they want it? That's the big question. Are they in on the game? It makes zero sense at all. The interesting thing, Steve, when you talk about the SAVE Act, this is one of those very few issues which most Americans actually agree on across party lines. The last I heard, it was like 85%. I don't know what the numbers are today, but it just makes all the common sense in the world. If you've got to show an ID to get on an airplane, you got to show an ID to go in the liquor store. Not that I would go there, but you got to show an ID to buy a gun or whatever else, but you don't have to show an ID to vote. It makes no sense at all. So whatever comes out of Thursday night, I hope it will put pressure on some of these Republican senators who've been on the fence, like Murkowski and others, to get off the fence and let's get this done. Do it for Lindsey Graham, if nothing else. I mean, get it done.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham was the biggest champion for the SAVE Act. In fact, he had told the president in the last few days that he had found a path forward on the SAVE Act, losing him a big loss, but those still there should be able to get this done. Meanwhile, I've got to ask, where is Mitch McConnell? The proof of life photo that was sent out has been pretty conclusively shown to be a photo from 2023. We have no proof of life or whatever his condition is of Mitch McConnell. The people of the state of Kentucky should be demanding that they have representation in the U.S. Senate. Your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. The Republicans have a precarious majority anyway. McConnell, of all people, who spent all those years as a Senate Majority Leader, should not be putting his own party in jeopardy and not showing up. If he's not capable of proceeding, then let's find another Republican that can proceed. But the people of Kentucky deserve to know the health of their status of their senior senator. I'm not sure what Kentucky law requires in terms of if McConnell were to step down, but folks in Kentucky and the people of America deserve to know because of the precarious, very small majority we're hanging on by a thread in the Senate right now. And nothing makes sense. That photo appears to be either doctored or old, and we still don't have, as you say, proof of life as to what the senator's current situation really is, and it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Don Brown, I'm going to put you on the schedule for Friday because I'm very curious about what gets said Thursday night at 9 p.m. by the president and the 2020 elections. We'll keep a close eye on it. Don, thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks, Steve. See you Friday. Appreciate you.
All right, my friend. There you have it. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. Nice to see you live from Washington, D.C. This is Daybreak. Welcome back to the program. Glad to have you here today. We've talked about this quite a bit, and there's a reason for that. It's a crime that continues to find its way into neighborhoods all over America. Even in the free state of Florida, people getting on the internet, finding information about other folks, and pulling a scam, ripping off friends and family and others. Here's a preview of what we're going to talk about. Listen to this.
All new at 10, deputies say this woman is behind a 3-year-long property scam.
Cheryl Jefferson is accused of selling vacant lots that she didn't own in Flagler County, and those lots were worth almost $500,000. And Fox 35's Bailey Bockover joins us live in Flagler County with that one. So, Bailey, what was the reason she gave deputies for what she's accused of doing?
Hi, John. Well, the woman reportedly claims she was just trying to help her, quote, celebrity music friends build a music studio. But instead, deputies say she was funneling stolen money overseas.
Yeah, here she is, Cheryl Jefferson, 63 years of age, arrested in Flagler County, ripping off her friends, apparently. Tom Simons joining me, spokesman for Home Title Lock, former FBI special agent with 26 years experience, investigating this kind of crime, white-collar crime. He also did counterterrorism and national security matters, and he's been digging deep into this. Tom, good morning.
Steve, this one's good morning. This is a wild story. The details are just baffling to me. So we, as you said in the intro, we got this woman, 63-year-old Cheryl Jefferson of Bartow, Florida. She gets busted for selling multiple properties that she didn't actually own. Now, to pull this off, right, she impersonates legitimate property owners, forges the ownership paperwork, and sells vacant lots without the owner's knowledge. And so the victims here, they really got run through the ringer. In one case, the real owner reportedly learned that something was wrong after trying to pay property taxes and finding out that she no longer owns the home. Another case, the family goes and checks on a vacant lot that they own, and they find that a house had already been built on land they believe belonged to them. And we see this a lot, right? Vacant land, second homes, inherited properties, investment properties. They're particularly vulnerable to home title theft because owners may not monitor the county records regularly or even have constant visibility on the land itself. And so this woman, Cheryl, she brought in more than $400,000 from the theft of 5 different properties. But then there's this crazy twist. It's now been revealed that Cheryl was doing this on behalf of scammers in Nigeria and sending the home theft proceeds to Nigerians using cryptocurrency.
Unbelievable. So Tom, I've owned vacant property in my life, and I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I don't go drive by it oftentimes. I've got a lot here, a piece of ground there. You know, unless I'm doing something over there specific, which is pretty rare, it could sit there for a year or two. I wouldn't go drive by. I wouldn't pay attention to it. And so when you drive by and see a house already built on it, my jaw would fly wide open. I mean, hello, who built a house on my land? I mean, honestly.
I know. It's like the perfect crime, right? Because no one's watching the store, right? It's this vacant piece of lot. But I just couldn't imagine driving by your land, Steve, and seeing like kids pushing each other in a swing in the front yard at your land. You didn't even know there was a house there.
Right. $421,995 that she fleeced from people, stole from people. Let's be honest. And with an interconnected world, you can find the information you need to be a thief, and you really can pull this off. Now, in recent weeks, we've done stories out of Texas, California, now Florida. The fact of the matter is, Tom, this is not isolated to any specific area of America. It's the Wild West out there all over the country when it comes to this sort of thing, isn't it?
It is, and that's because the county clerks really aren't watching the transactions that get brought into them to transfer ownership of your home from you to somebody else. Their job is recorder of deeds, and that's all they do.
So how do you protect yourself? I mean, look, besides driving by your vacant lot, once a week, twice a week, whatever it is. Now, this woman had a strange twist, sending her money to Nigeria. I don't know what that's about. But the fact of the matter is, these folks will rip off their families, their friends, their neighbors, and complete strangers. Nobody's immune here, are they?
Agreed. I mean, any one of us who has equity in our homes, and that's usually the largest asset, I know it's mine, that we have, is vulnerable to this. And so the important thing that everyone needs to do is figure out a way to monitor the status of their home title. The problem is that you're going to drive yourself crazy driving to the county clerk's office to check that every day, which is why I advocate for a service called Home Title Lock that will do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Home Title Lock, will watch your look. When I first came on and started doing work with Home Title Lock, I had no idea where my title was. They asked me, "Where's your title?" I'm like, have no idea. I don't think most people do, Tom. I don't think anybody pays attention. And therefore, if you're not paying attention, whether it's because it happens to people that are in their home, or somebody that's elderly goes to the nursing home, or whatever. I mean, there are so many different approaches to steal people blind these days. It's mind-boggling. So what does Home Title Lock do?
Well, Home Title Lock's going to monitor the status of your home title for you, so you can kind of set it and forget it. But the important thing is that they're going to notify you as soon as there's any kind of change to your home title, whether that's a lien, a loan placed on your place, or transfer of ownership to someone else. And the most important part from my perspective is their US-based restoration team of legal professionals. And they're going to be the ones who unwind the transaction if, God forbid, something happens. You're not going to have to bear the expense of the attorneys it's going to take to restore that home back into your good name.
Yeah, it's really important. If you don't know where your title is, figure it out. Step one. Step two, get a hold of my friends at Home Title Lock and make sure, because they'll spend up to $1 million if something happens under their watch. They don't just say, well, I'm sorry that happened. No, they protect you. That's really critical, isn't it, Tom?
It's the whole ball game, right? So the police may end up being able to arrest people like Cheryl, but what they're not going to do is be able to restore these vacant lots back into the rightful owner's names. It's just not the cop's job. And so what's going to happen is the victims are going to have to spend a fortune on the attorneys. Better to outsource that to Home Title Lock. Let them bear that expense with just the pennies a day you're spending for the subscription.
Yeah, in fact, in most states, a lot of what we're talking about here, there are no laws on the books. When I say the Wild West, it's also in the legal system. You're basically on your own. Tom?
Right.
Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on to bring up this important issue.
It's important. And guys, look, we keep showing you one place after another after another. If you want to know more about Home Title Lock, use the QR code on your screen right there. You can find out more. They've got a special offer right now, 25% off. It's going to save you $100 over a couple of years. You can save money right now with HometitleLock.com. Promo code is Gruber25. Gruber25. All right, here's something I can get behind, and maybe you can too. In fact, I'll take your emails on it at stevegruber.com. Daylight savings time could become permanent, meaning no more spring forward, fall back nonsense, right? It got out of the Rules Committee 6-4. I don't know who would vote against this, but maybe I could guess. Donald Trump supports it, therefore, certain people are going to oppose it. But the measure has support of President Trump getting rid of this twice a year ritual of putting the clocks back and forth, which always throws you out of whack for a week or two. I hate it. Most people do. In fact, proponents argue that resetting clocks has negative health impacts, stress on your heart, your system, your sleep, all of it. Well, it might be making it. Americans are overwhelmingly supportive of this practice of getting rid of it. Permanent daylight savings time, more outdoor recreation, more time at home, less messing with your sleep twice a year. I love it. Speaking of messing with my sleep, I'm here in Washington, D.C., as you know. So I am without my regular bed. You know what it's like to travel. You don't have your bed. Well, in this case, it's my ghost bed. My ghost bed is absent. I wish that the Airbnb had a ghost bed. That would be nice. It doesn't. Makes it tough to sleep. Look, ghost bed has been in our home for, I guess, about 4 months, maybe a little bit longer now. It is an American-made sleep system. I love it. American-made. It's a better price than all the major names that you know out there. It's available all over the country, and it's available to you now with a special discount. And if you don't like it, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't like it, you can send it back. For 101 nights, you can try the ghost bed. If you call up and say, look, I'm not a fan, they'll come pick it up at your house. No questions asked. Go to ghostbed.com/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. Ghostbed.com/Gruber. The promo code is Gruber. You're going to love this bed. And again, when you do, or even if you don't, send me an email. SteveGruber.com. Love hearing from you guys. I read every single one. Some of them are a bit long, but I do my best to read them anyway. I don't respond to all of them, but I read them all. Anyhow, we'll take a break. Another hour of day break straight ahead from Washington, D.C.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now on Real America's Voice.
All right, welcome back to it live from Washington, D.C., a special edition of Daybreak. All week long here from the Capitol, we had an inkling that the president was going to do something big. Three big things this hour. Let's start with that. Number one, that Trump primetime 9 p.m. Thursday night address to the nation to discuss the 2020 elections. At least that's what we're led to believe. We'll have to wait to see what the president has to say, but important things could be coming out this week. Number two, Iran is getting devastated. It is remarkable the lethality and the viciousness of the American attacks going on right now. We'll take a look at that. And number three, it's time to put a smile on your face because it puts a smile on my face. Ivy is here. She's in the home studio while I'm in D.C. Ivy, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. So how was the White House yesterday? You kind of got to see something cool there, didn't you?
Yeah, we got to check out. It was very cool. Freedom 250, which is the IndyCar race. I misspoke yesterday on the program. I was corrected by some people. I called it a Formula One race. It's not. It's an IndyCar race. Mm-hmm. But right between the White House and the Eisenhower Executive Office building, they gathered a bunch of people, including the president and Roger Penske and Ryan.
Michigan guy, by the way.
Yeah, he is. And, the Secretary of Transportation was there. Everybody was there. And they brought one of these Indy cars right down, boom, and did a pit change. I mean, I was right there. I could have reached out and touched these
isn't
guys. Oh, so cool.
Yeah, we just recently went to a race ourselves, and we're right there on pit row. And watching these guys work with such precision, it's just really, really cool. Really neat.
Let me tell you what those guys are. Those guys are athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, real athletes.
Focused.
These guys, focus and athleticism on display right there. The crowd went wild. President Trump, big smile on his face. He was out there, gave some remarks. Really something completely different, that you don't expect
cool.
at the White House. Yeah,
that's
it was
awesome.
Great.
Well, in case of not being fit, we've talked a little bit about the cyclosporiasis going around.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to play a little bite because I'm not sure if people really realize how bad this thing is. Anthony, go ahead and play that.
The number of confirmed cases of a parasitic intestinal stomach bug continues to spread across the country, and now we do have confirmed cases right here in California. The CDC is saying at least 31 states are reporting cases of cyclosporiasis, an infection that causes severe gastrointestinal issues. New York, Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan have all been hit the hardest. Detroit alone has more than 1,200 cases. Doctors say it is spread by eating contaminated food or water, but unlike a stomach bug that may last 24 to 48 hours, people are reporting stomach illnesses that last for more than a week.
Yeah, you can come back to us, Anthony.
I'm like, night sweats.
In fact,
so now it's 32 states have it. Michigan being one of the worst hit, Ohio, Illinois, New York, and California. And it's spread by eating contaminated food or contaminated water.
Right, it's a parasite, right? That's on like the skin of fruits and vegetables. We had it inside our house. We didn't have it. One of our children had it, diagnosed here. Been a couple of weeks now, but boy.
Right. Well, wash your hands regularly, which is kind of common sense, but then also making sure that you're washing your vegetables, your fruit, and in the best case scenario, cook those veggies to make sure you're killing any of the bacteria. And
what I find unusual is they have not pinpointed the source. It's not like it's the apples, it's the broccoli. It's not that. It's weird. And our child who got sick, very fastidious, washes hands all the time. She does, and so not that. It's just an unusual thing. But she was in great discomfort. So, folks, if you can avoid this, avoid this. But I saw some advice online yesterday where the woman was saying, peel your fruits and vegetables and then cook them before you eat them. Well, I don't want to cook the apple. You don't
necessarily always want to do that with fruit, but best to wash it. There also are some veggie sprays you can buy from your supermarket and things like that. But I want to get to something else too. Steve, imagine looking up at the night sky and realizing it's not completely dark anymore. federal regulators have approved an experimental satellite carrying a 60-foot mirror that's designed to reflect sunlight back to Earth after sunset.
Why?
Well, a California startup called Reflect Orbital says the technology could provide sunlight on demand for everything from search and rescue operations and disaster response to construction sites and even solar farms that want to keep producing electricity after dark. What do you think about this, Steve?
That's odd, but I can see for search and rescue, is it really going to create any electricity? And what's the cost of the satellite when we have fossil fuels in spades in this country? Seems like another, I don't know, scheme to make the solar panels worth something. But for search and rescue or an important event that's going on, maybe it
makes sense. Did we lose Steve? Oh, there he is.
You know. Say again?
We lost you there for a moment. I didn't hear what you said there.
I just said I think it's unusual to use for solar panels, but great for search and rescue.
Yeah. I mean, it could be useful in that, but I think it's a dangerous road to go down. You know, because what we have sunlight and darkness for a reason. You know, I feel like it's kind of another way of playing God, and that's always a bad thing to do. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it personally.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it as well.
So what's happening at the White House today?
So at the White House today, I'm waiting for the schedule. It has not dropped yet. You get a daily briefing of what's coming up for the day. It has not dropped yet, but I am looking forward to this primetime address coming up Thursday at 9 o'clock. I think that a lot of people believe that the 2020 election was not on the up and up in a variety of places, including Michigan, where we live, Georgia, where there are 200 FBI agents on the ground. A lot of us anticipating something big on Thursday. But as I talked about with Don Brown and Jonathan Gilliam here earlier, have we been desensitized to the point that nobody is listening anymore? I mean, that's my real question. Nobody's listening anymore because they've said we're past the 2020 election, nothing to see here. Well, there is something to see here. Tulsi Gabbard began pulling that curtain back before she left. We know that our friend John Solomon is working inside the administration as the transparency czar, for lack of a better term, meaning he can declassify whatever he wants. So I am really looking forward to what we hear come Thursday.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting, but I do agree with you. I think oftentimes a lot of people who are in, you know, just the common sense mode, generally just start to tone things out when there's just so much opinion out there that, you know, just throw out ridiculous ideas. And then
everybody's got an opinion, Ivy. Everybody's got an opinion.
Everyone is an expert. Everyone turns into an expert. Everyone has an opinion. And then everyone has their own set of facts that they think is true. And then not only that, but it just seems like you get bombarded with constant information. I think a lot of people just start to tone things out. So I do wonder if there are some bombshell revelations. Oh, I'm not saying that word right. But it would be, I think some people may just be, you know, not that excited about, but maybe not. I could be wrong.
We'll see, you know, and look, we've seen it in the last couple of weeks. These podcasters, they adopt their own set of facts. When real facts come out, they don't care. It doesn't matter. That doesn't create clicks and doesn't create cash flow. Anyhow, Ivy, you'll be back a little bit later in the program. Love you. Nice to see you this morning.
Love you too, Steve.
I'll take a break and be right back. This is Daybreak.
You ever find
we jump back in now, one of the undeniable successes of this administration is closing the border. During the Biden years, they said it couldn't be done. Had to have congressional action and there had to be new laws and this and that. No, we just had to enforce the laws. All we needed was a different president. And now it seems that any excuse that they can conjure up as an excuse not to deport people, it's pretty remarkable. Joining me is Todd Benson, Senior Research Fellow for the Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation. Todd, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
And one of these is we can't send Venezuelans back because there was an earthquake in that country. And yes, there was a devastating earthquake, but it didn't impact the entire country. And that should not be a barrier to send a criminal or somebody here illegally back to where they came from. That should not be something that impedes that, should it?
Of course not. The earthquakes, there were two of them, hit Caracas, which is the capital, did a lot of devastation there and in a neighboring state. But the rest of the city and the rest of the country, there are lots of other cities where we could relocate, resettle Venezuelans, but that's not even a half of it. That's not even a tiny percentage of it. Most of the Venezuelans that came over the border during the Biden administration, somewhere on the order of 1 million, 605,000 who are protected by against deportation by something called temporary protected status, which is now being stripped away, were firmly resettled in 17 other countries of South America for years and years before they ever came here. So those countries, we already have third country agreements to take back our immigrants that we're deporting. And those agreements are expanding every day more and more. So they can go back to any one of those countries at any time and they're perfectly safe, far from the earthquake epicenter.
Yeah, you know, I can look at the headlines every day. Today is no different, Todd. An illegal immigrant in North Carolina's 1st congressional district killed somebody who lives there, a Mexican national, Jamie Santiago Corona. Allegedly ran a stop sign, killed a girl near Vanceboro, North Carolina. And every day I can see this. Last week, those that are driving 18-wheelers that cannot understand the language, can't read the road signs, killed a little girl, a college student, and a police officer. I mean, it's every week, Todd. It's inexcusable, and anybody that thinks this is okay ought to have their head examined. Your thoughts?
Utter tragedy, utter senseless, useless, stupid tragedy, slaughtering people and families across the country with these big 18-wheelers. The illegal immigrants who came in were put through these phony baloney schools that gave them authorization to get licenses in places like California, blue states, but also places like Texas and some of the northern states as well, to give them licenses when they couldn't even read or speak English. How are you going to read an instruction manual when you can't even read a road sign? And yet they were just stamping these people clear through these schools to get their licenses and kill Americans. Just an absolutely horror show, absolute terrible thing.
Yeah, Sean Duffy putting an end to that. These were self-certifying schools. They were policing themselves and obviously not well. They were taking the money and giving people licenses and pushing them out the door, even though one of these stops last week where the driver had killed somebody, he needed a Google translator just to talk to the police officer. I'm sorry, that's inexcusable. So at least Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, said, no, we're not doing that anymore, and took the licenses away from several of these schools. It's a good step forward, but a lot more needs to be done. Yes?
Yeah, and I will say that the Trump administration, I just came from there, spent 13 months as a senior advisor to Tom Homan. The administration is doing quite a lot on this topic. We have got state troopers in multiple states that are conducting roadblocks and checks on interstate highways in coordination with one another, pulling these people out of the cabs and giving them over to ICE. these operations are going on all the time, and we have probably saved a lot of lives through these actions, but a lot more does need to be done.
What about the governor of Minnesota giving a pardon to a convicted criminal here recently? And, well, we came in and Marco Rubio said, well, that's not going to fly, and they deported the man anyway. These blue states, are they just that willing to put their own citizens at risk?
Well, blue state politicians are always doing things like this that are just beyond comprehension. I mean, who can understand? I probably till the day I die, I'll never understand why they, release child molesters rather than hand them over to ICE, or rapists and murderers when they get out of prison, to do cashless bail and release violent criminals and who cares, even nonviolent criminals who are doing a lot of thievery and burglary and that sort of thing, to prey on our people again and again and again. I'll just never understand it. They look at it, I think, as like kind of a slippery slope kind of thing. If we, give the worst of the worst over to ICE, that somehow that means that maybe the less worse will start handing over to ICE. I really don't get it, but it's absolutely punitive to the American people to conduct policies like that. It's terrible.
It's terrible, Todd, but at least we're making some big strides, but a lot more work needs to be done. Todd, always good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've made progress, but as these bodies pile up, I mean, how many people have to die before the blue states say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't give a driver's license to somebody who can't read or speak English, to understand our road signs, pulling U-turns on interstates and other dangerous maneuvers? Think about it. We'll be back on Daybreak. Well, in advance of this speech coming Thursday night from the president on the integrity of the 2020 elections, or lack thereof, you can imagine the mainstream media working overtime to discredit what they haven't even seen yet, to discredit what they're not even aware of yet. Let me give you an example. MS Now, formerly MSNBC, is working hard overtime. Just let me give you the opening line of the article. President Trump plans to claim in a speech Thursday that newly declassified intelligence reports reveal a foreign nation's plan to interfere in the 2020 presidential election. And later in the article, Trump lost the 2020 race to President Joe Biden, but falsely claimed his defeat was due to widespread voter fraud. No credible evidence has been presented that widespread fraud, this is what they say now. They didn't used to say widespread fraud, they said fraud at all. So as you can see, their narrative changes, but they're working overtime to discredit the president's primetime speech coming up on Thursday. We'll keep you posted, of course. We wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for a strong foundation set by the framers. Hamilton built America's financial foundation on the principle of sound, stable money, a principle later embodied by the gold standard. However, we abandoned that discipline in 1971 and have since seen inflation erode the dollar's value. What is the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that can be shaken, disrupted, or devalued? Birch Gold Group has been helping Americans solidify their savings with gold for the past 15 years. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Learn how gold fits into your portfolio by texting America to the number 989898. You'll receive a free, no-obligation information kit. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless five-star reviews, let Birch Gold help you build your foundation with gold. Text America to the number 989898. That's the number 989898. When I come back, make America healthy again. What's still in the food that you eat? What's still on the food that you eat? Should it be there? Much of it, probably not. Tiffany Cianci coming up after this. All right, jumping back into it now. The Make America Healthy Again movement has done some good things. It got rid of the food pyramid because it was upside down. It's gone after food dyes that are illegal all over Europe but were being used here. It's gone after seed oils, among other things. But my next guest says it's not nearly enough. Tiffany Cianci is a MAHA advocate, entrepreneur, founder of TikTok Town Hall. She speaks on consumer protection, economic fairness, and the impact of private equity on American families and small businesses, among other things. Tiffany, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you so much for having me on again.
You're concerned about some of the toxins, I suppose, because the EPA promised to make America healthy again, and yet you say you haven't seen enough. Not much at all, in fact, in some areas. What are your thoughts?
You know, one of the things that Bobby promised on the campaign was that he was going to go after a lot of the pesticides that are in our food supply, especially the ones that have been illegal overseas for decades. What we did see, though, is that when he was appointed, we saw hand-selected Bayer Monsanto insiders that were appointed to the head of the EPA and the USDA that needed to be his counterparts. And that really is where we saw the erosion of trust with people that were hoping to get chemicals out of our food supply. Today, we've seen a multi-pronged approach to deliver pesticide immunity to German and Chinese monopolies in Bayer Monsanto and Syngenta, the same companies that are paying tens of billions of dollars for killing American farmers with pesticides and herbicides. And we're seeing it in the legislature, the courts, and we're also seeing it in the executive. It's really disappointing, and Bobby needed more support in the other agencies to effectively do what he promised.
So he's made some good strides in some areas, as I outlined here at the top of our conversation. But in order to break through here, look, these folks have a lot of people walking the halls of Congress, making a lot of promises to politicians. That's part of the problem, isn't it?
It's really the main problem. We've seen Bayer Monsanto has really infiltrated every facet of the legislature and executive in this particular presidency. And we've seen 22 executives planted around the president in the executive office, from Susie Wiles, who used to be Bayer Monsanto's lead lobbyist at Ballard Partners, and Pam Bondi, her second in command, to people all the way down to the chief of staff's office. And so when we talk to folks and we say that we want to see a healthy food supply, we've seen the erosion of states' rights and this effort over and over again to deliver for these international corporations instead of American families and American farmers. Right now, we're seeing it in the Senate Farm Bill, where we've seen that Joni Ernst in her retirement is looking for a good job, and she's trying to put in something called the Save Our Bacon Act. That is at the behest of two international monopolies in Brazil and in China. We've got JBS and we've got Smithfield. And she's going to put in an amendment that would give no power to the states to regulate agriculture and would allow them to pump our meat full of chemicals, because that's what those international monopolies are asking for, is the Save Our Bacon Act. These are over and over again international monopolies we've allowed to infiltrate our food supply and then infiltrate the administration, that are stopping us from controlling what we eat and keeping Americans healthy, which is what was promised.
Now, as I pointed out at the top here, a number of these things that have been eliminated by RFK Jr. to begin with are not even legal. Some of these dyes and preservatives and other chemicals are not even legal in most countries, especially in Europe, because they saw that they were dangerous chemicals. But they have been pushed and then pumped into the American food supply my entire life and yours. If you're going to give a list of top priorities of things to go after, what would they be?
Right now, we need to codify states' rights, because the states are doing a better job than the federal in protecting their citizens. And today, if we look at the Senate Farm Bill, right now we have Cory Booker, who's offered an amendment. He's on the Ag Committee that is offering to codify states' rights to regulate this when we're not seeing it in the executive, in a simple one-line amendment that says FIFRA does not supersede states' rights, and states have a right to regulate where the federal is failing us. And secondly, we want to stop Joni Ernst's amendment to that Farm Bill, which the Ag Committee chair, the Republican Ag Committee chair, called a poison pill, is the Save Our Bacon Act, which eliminates 1,000 state laws in Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, and all across this nation that are protecting American citizens right now from companies that are overseas pumping chemicals into the meat they serve us, pumping antibiotics, pumping mRNA vaccines into the meat that they serve us. These are the two things we should be calling the Senate Ag Committee members right now and saying, absolutely not. We want a farm bill that serves farmers, not protects companies for killing farmers and companies for poisoning American citizens.
It's one of the best arguments I've ever heard, Tiffany, for supporting your local small farmer who raises a few pigs or a few cows or a few chickens, because maybe they don't have to use those chemicals that JBS and Smithfield and others use. Supporting the small farm is incredibly important, isn't it?
It's literally the most important thing we can do in the shoes we stand in to bring back the local farm community. Industrial farming and monopolies have destroyed 250,000 small meat packers across this nation in just the last 15 years. Those are small businesses that used to package meat locally and get it straight into the community. Today, we see meat shipped back and forth across an ocean for 4 months to be processed. And as long as it was slaughtered here in America and put the final plastic here in America, it's labeled grown and packaged in America, but we don't know what they do to it when it goes overseas for processing and comes back. We really need to support the local
remarkable
farmers.
to me. It's remarkable to me when I learned here, I don't know, a few years ago, that we load whole chickens, whole carcasses on ships, ship them to places like China, where they're then cut up and returned to America. Strange practice to me. But President Trump did recently say that he was going to strengthen the smaller meat packers against the big four. Is that an important step forward?
It's a very important step forward. Thomas Massey's been working to do that with the Prime Act, which allows local farms to package their meat locally again, something that the large big four have been rallying against, have been lobbying against for years. And that's in the Farm Bill right now. We can ask that that stay in there and be codified.
So that's an important step forward. What else would you put on the list of priorities for Bobby Kennedy, who, by the way, on balance, I think has done good work. I mean, it's difficult to work inside this city. I'm sitting in D.C. tonight. Lobbyists, special interests, people who have an agenda. It's tough to work within this environment and this framework, but he's gotten a lot done. How would you grade him?
Right now, for his effort in the things that he actually controls within HHS, I think he's moved mountains, given the amount of opposition he faces. What I would like to see Bobby Kennedy given the ability to do is what President Trump promised, which was to go wild on everything but big oil. That's what he promised. What he needs are the heads of the other two departments to allow his MAHA commission efforts and his MAHA reporting to actually reflect what he promised the American people when it comes to getting chronic disease out of our food supply and our children.
All right, so your priorities. Lay it out for me one more time, Tiffany. Where would you start if you were king for a day, or queen, if it were? What would you do today?
Well, we don't like kings around here, but I do love when the American people take action. I would recommend every single one of them to call all of their senators, especially those on the Ag Committee, and to say that they don't want the Farm Bill to be passed that doesn't serve farmers. Instead, we want it to be passed with no SOBA, which eliminates states' rights, and to codify the FIFRA amendment that codifies states' rights to protect the American food supply right now, where those other two agencies are failing to work with Bobby Kennedy.
Tiffany Cianci, always a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Keep an eye on what you eat. You'll feel better if you do. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And speaking of health, let me tell you about something people keep asking me about, the QE Infrared Facial Mask. This is red and infrared light therapy you can use at home to help support healthier looking skin, boost collagen, and soften the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. Instead of expensive spa treatments, you just wear the mask for a few minutes a day. It's comfortable, easy to use, and fits right into your schedule. And it's great for Halloween. Look at that thing. This is the same mask that Ivy uses pretty much every day. People love the results. Skip the costly spa visits. Go to QEstrong.com. Use the promo code Gruber. Get the mask for under $200. QEstrong.com. Promo code is Gruber. And again, it's great for the kids on Halloween. How do you beat that? I'll be right back on Daybreak. More and more information continues to come out about potential targeting of Donald Trump for assassination by Iran. We've heard a number of different stories. We know, of course, that he flew back home on the old Air Force One from Ankara, Turkey, after the summit there here just last week, setting aside the new Air Force One because of credible threats, I would say. The ramping up of the war in Iran has certainly ramped up that regime's attempts to take out President Trump. It would be a devastating mistake for Iran and a devastating hit for America both ways, but it's something that we need to be cognizant of because, look, we're in a conflict where over the last 12 or 16 hours, America has hit dozens of Iranian targets viciously, knocking this country out in ways that maybe we didn't see in the first parts of the war. It is remarkable. In fact, I'd like to go to Bite 11 here, Anthony. In the Oval Office last night, President Trump says he will continue to keep his foot on the gas. Here it is.
Guest is on hold.
You noted the United States is bombing Iran again. I mean, you've been bombing Iran for months now. Is this just the new normal for the American people?
No, well, we're in Vietnam for 19 years. We're here for 4 months. So I think we've done a lot. We've knocked out their Navy in a period of 1 month. We knocked out their Air Force. Their Air Force is non-existent. We knocked out most of their missiles, most of their drones. We knocked out their drone manufacturing capability, about 92%. Their missile capability for manufacturing, we knocked out 89%. And they have a little capability, but they don't have any capability for us. This is almost a military skirmish. Now, with all of that being said, you have to get people that want to make something. We had a deal with them 2 days ago, and then they said, oh, we can't make that deal. We have to negotiate it further. And this is what they've done for 47 years.
47 years. My next guest is Glenn Sturm, internationally published, award-winning, and best-selling author of Warriors Hate War. Glenn, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well. So the Iranian war heating up dramatically, to say the least, in the last 12 or 16 hours. Another round of vicious attacks. I don't know what else to call it. I've seen the videos online. They are vicious attacks, taking out infrastructure, taking out the IRGC headquarters, and really putting Iran, it would seem to me, on its heels, and yet it continues. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a very complicated strategy in a very complicated environment. As you mentioned a second ago, Iranians have 47 years to prepare for this kind of activity. And it seems to, first off, I completely support the president's activity. I think that anybody who doesn't, I don't understand. They haven't studied history. And, you go back to Desert One, and from that point forward, we know we have an adversary whose only objective is to destroy our country and our way of life. The problem, the concern I've got, it goes back to General Spaatz during World War II, before D-Day. General Spaatz decided and was very vocal about saying that we didn't need to pursue D-Day because they could bomb Germany out of existence. And thank goodness we went forward with D-Day. It was the right strategy at the right time. And, how do we destroy this organization who's had 47 years to prepare for this? Going back to World War II, Germany had 5 years, and at the end of the war, we didn't know where a lot of their things were. And how do we deal with that today? It's not easy. And the failure of our allies, purported allies, to support us the way they should have, has made the problem more difficult. We need their support, we need their help, we need basing rights, we need all sorts of things, and they're just not supporting us. And I think that's the president's, biggest concern.
It is a concern.
About NATO.
Yeah.
Yes.
NATO has
Absolutely.
not stood and which brings me to the question. I don't have a lot of time here, but who would defend the United States if we got hit? Who could? You look at the military of the UK, of France, of Germany. They don't have the capability to defend the United States the way we defend them. So, what is NATO worth to us today?
Well, I think that maybe the Eastern European portions of NATO have the will, but they don't have the resources. We seem to be standing alone. And if you go back to the Powell Doctrine, critical aspects of the Powell Doctrine state that we have to have support, a coalition support to pursue things. Who benefits the most from taking out Iran? And that's Europe. And they are not willing to step forward. It is extraordinarily disappointing, and it brings into question, what do we do? What do we change? I mean, Israel has been our greatest ally in this process. If you look at the ballistic missile ranges that Iran's got, their target areas now are Europe.
That's
and
right.
We've done an extraordinary job taking out a lot of things. But guess what? We don't know what we don't know. We don't know where a lot of things are. And, how do we find them without getting in there and figuring it out? And that's the big concern for me.
Yeah, and a big concern for a lot of people. The concern for millions of Americans is that NATO wants all of the benefit and none of the pain. That's unfortunate. Glenn, I have to leave it there. The book is Warriors Hate War. Glenn Sturm, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Really appreciate it. NATO wants all the benefit of America's ability and military power, but they don't want to chip in too often. We'll take a break and be back. I've got sports around the corner with Brock. All right, let's check in on sports now with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. St. Louis Cardinals slugger Jordan Walker hit 6 straight home runs to rally from behind and defeat Philadelphia's Kyle Schwarber 12-11 to win the Major League Baseball Home Run Derby last night at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Walker hit a total of 31 home runs over 3 rounds of play. He defeated Tampa Bay's Junior Caminero in the semis to get to the final. Major League Baseball's Midsummer Classic, the All-Star Game, is tonight in Philadelphia. Yesterday was the first off day of the Tour de France this year. Stage 10 of 21 is today. 4-time champ Tadej Pogacar is the overall leader after 9 stages by nearly 3 minutes over 2-time champ Jonas Vingegaard. And there were 2 games in the WNBA last night. It was Atlanta over Los Angeles, 101-92, and Minnesota squeaked by Phoenix, 104-100. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
Here at the White House today. We've got that coming up and expect to be there. We'll see how that plays out. He's showing up at the White House about 11 o'clock and will be in the White House at 11:15. We're watching that closely. Again, the biggest focus, though, is on this Thursday event. The primetime speech by the president is top of mind for many people, certainly on social media. It's lighting it up out there. A lot of speculation that it's going to be declared. Now, again, this is an internet rumor. And I'll tell you, it's only a rumor that there will be some call that Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, the 2 senators from Georgia, are illegitimate. Is that true? Is there enough evidence out of the state of Georgia to suggest they were not fairly elected? Waiting to hear more as this information continues to trickle out. Obviously, there are leaks in the White House somewhere, because MS Now got this information before anybody else. They need to plug the leaks in the White House still today. Remarkable. People are more interested in their own benefit than the benefit of this nation. These people need to be held to account. This is Daybreak.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now.
And good morning. Welcome to a brand new hour of Daybreak. Glad to have you on board live from Washington, D.C. this week. Special edition of the program. Lots to cover. So here are three big things you need to know. Number one, oil has spiked to $80 amid the new upgraded U.S. attacks on Iran in the last 3 days now. Last night, incredibly intense, taking out specific headquarters for the IRGC and more. Number two, the Iranian war, like I said, has ramped up. Iran says, however, it will continue to control the Strait of Hormuz. We'll see if that turns out to be true. And number three, a primetime address coming up Thursday from the president to focus on, we're told, the 2020 election and irregularities, voter fraud. In fact, there are rumors flying around on the internet that he will declare both senators from Georgia to be illegitimate, Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. Is that true? We'll have to wait till Thursday to find out. But if there was going to be election rigging, how would it play out? White House advisor Stephen Miller says this is one way. Listen.
We have a huge announcement, and that is that they found over 26,000 absentee ballots that were counted illegally. And Patty's going to describe that. So this is just phase one of our efforts to look at this information from Detroit. But already 26,000 just from Detroit. It's really a huge development. We have the facts, we have the goods, we have the envelopes, we have the copies of the absentee ballots.
And there you have it. That's Michigan. Georgia has 200 FBI agents on the ground, we're told, investigating what happened in the 2020 election. So we'll keep a close eye on this. This is incredibly important. And what is the law? If, for the sake of argument, the election in Georgia is proven that voters that did not exist cast ballots, or ballots that were illegitimate were cast or recounted time and again after they claimed there was a water main break there at the counting center in Fulton County, for example, what is the law? How does it track, both federally and at the state level in Georgia, or in Michigan, where ballots we saw come in at 3 a.m, van loads of them, following the 2020 election. And as you know, Joe Biden won Michigan by a hair and Georgia by 11,000 votes, or allegedly won. A lot of questions still to be asked and answered. The question is the country become tone deaf to it? Will anybody care? I'll care, and you will probably care, but will enough people care to make a difference? And will it push the SAVE Act forward? Because something else we've heard is that 18 different states had their voter rolls, their data compromised by a foreign nation, that nation being China. These are stories we continue to hear. We hope to get a lot of clarity come Thursday night at 9 o'clock on that primetime address from the president. Meanwhile, let me talk about something else here for a moment that I've been watching and fascinated with, because it's not just for infants. These Trump accounts, if you have a child born between 2025 and 2028, you get a $1,000 starter. But if you have a child who is still not of legal age, you can open a Trump account as well. Trump account's now up and running. People are cashing in. Listen to this.
If you have a child that was born in 2025 or beyond, then you can get this Trump account as long as you're a U.S. citizen and you have a valid Social Security number for your kid. And actually, if you apply for a Social Security number, you can now apply for a Trump account at the same time with the same form. So what are the rules? How do you get this? Well, you can contribute $5,000 a year tax-free, tax-deductible investments in a low-cost index fund. That's like the S&P 500. Remember, the S&P 500 made 300% over the past 10 years. That could be a really good investment. But, you know, even if you don't invest in it, it's a pretty good deal. And you can use it for things like college, obviously, because when you're 18, that's one of the places that you're going. But you may not. You might want to use it for your first home. You can even just keep it in your account and use it for retirement.
I would suggest that it is the most significant change to the way Americans can save money since Social Security in 1935. I would suggest that this is the biggest change that people can make for their kids or their grandkids, especially for newborns, but other children are also eligible. I didn't even realize that until more recently. And so let's do the math. What happens if you invest $1,000 now? What if you invest money over time? You continue to fund this account. What would it mean 15 years down the road, or 20, or more? Listen to this.
On the other hand, the President of the United States says just the opposite. Why don't we give everybody an individual private account that they own and control? They can have the dignity of their own savings. They can improve their own lot in life. Moms and dads and companies, churches and schools, all these people can contribute to these accounts. And if you start with $1,000 and it's matched at birth and you save just $50 a month, $10 a week, it's $50,000 at age 18, $200,000 at age 30, and it's $1 million at age 55. This is the difference between the president's idea for America, which is empowering individuals, and Mamdani and Bernie's idea for America, which is more control, more centralized control from government, more dependency on government, which we reject.
Yeah.
$10 a week becomes $50,000 by the time a young person is 18 years of age. And as you heard, it doesn't have to be used for college. You can start a business, buy a home, do a variety of things. You're an American. You have options. So I truly believe that the Trump accounts are a game changer for young people in America because it puts them vested into the market. Now they have a stake in this thing we call America. I think it's brilliant. Of course, the Democrats give him no credit for that. Why would they? They give him no credit for any of his successes. Politics in D.C. in 2026. Meanwhile, oil did spike to $80. It's now cooled to $79 a barrel in light of those new attacks on Iran. Gas, however, down a little bit. It's in the $3.85 range across the country. At least it's still below $4 national average. Indiana's still the cheapest gas in America. Pretty significant. Here is a closed circuit announcement for my friends and viewers in Lower Michigan at Doty Service Network. We know a comfortable home means everything to your family. That's why we've expanded our services. Same great people, new name, plus plumbing and appliance repairs too. Whether it's heating, cooling, or fixing life's little emergencies, Doty is growing to serve you better because when your home is happy, your family is too. And this is not private equity. This is truly locally owned, family operated for decades. You can find out more by visiting DotyMechanical.com. That's D-O-T-Y, DotyMechanical.com, or call 517-327-7777. Doty is your home's new best friend. And I say experience the Doty difference. They've done a lot of work in my homes, folks, especially after the fire we suffered in a rental house. Great work, professional work, and people you can count on. DotyMechanical.com. I'll take a break and be back. Nice to see you this morning on Daybreak. All right, I've said this before. I'll say it again for emphasis. I have never been a member of a political party, ever. Never will be, by the way. But that's okay in Michigan, where I live, because the primaries are open. You don't have to be a member of any party to vote in the primaries, which brings me to Operation Chaos, where there's some discussions among Republicans and conservatives to skip the Republican primary and vote in the Democratic primary to try to impact who ends up on the November ballot. Joining me is Katie Hyde, Michigan News Source News Director. Katie, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
This is a game that we hear surface, and Democrats have done this, we're told, and Republicans sometimes talk about it. I don't know if it has much impact, but in states that have open primaries, where you're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, you can just go ahead and cast your ballot. I guess it can create some disturbance. What are your thoughts?
It can, and that's an idea that's being floated around. Here in Michigan, our primary is 3 weeks from today. And the idea behind Operation Chaos is that if your own party's primary isn't competitive, if you have no favorite, if you don't have a preferred candidate, what you do is you vote in the other party's primary to influence the outcome of that election. This is an idea that is attributed to the late, great Rush Limbaugh. And so the idea behind Operation Chaos is this. For example, in Michigan, we have Mike Rogers. He's the only U.S. candidate or U.S. Senate candidate on the Republican side of the ticket. So you could vote for him in the primary, but he's going to be guaranteed a spot in the November election. Or you can vote for a Democrat that he's most likely to beat in November. And so when it comes to that race, your strategy could be, is Abdul El-Sayed most likely to lose to Mike Rogers, or Congresswoman Haley Stevens? Then we have the Republican gubernatorial candidates. We have John James, Mike Cox, and Perry Johnson. And if you say, I don't have a favorite, but I know I'm going to vote Republican in November, I have to look at whether Jocelyn Benson, our Secretary of State, is the most likely candidate that any one of those candidates will beat in November, or is it Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson? Benson, despite her attempts to convince us otherwise, will be overseeing her own election. And so talks have been that we need to throw votes behind Chris Swanson to make sure that he is the candidate that a Republican goes up against in November. And so various strategies you can discuss. I mean, that's between you and your conscience when you get in the voting booth, but it is an interesting topic to talk about for sure.
Yeah, it is very interesting to say the least. The polling numbers, it depends on who you look at for the Republican race. Some seem to indicate that John James got a bounce from the Trump endorsement, but other polls still have it all very close, all in the 20% range, 28, 27, 23. So I don't know that the Republican primary for governor is a foregone conclusion based on the numbers I'm looking at. Your thoughts?
And it's one of those things too. We don't know until we know, right? When those votes are counted and the night before, and then we have, or the night of, excuse me. And then here in Michigan, we have absentee ballots that have already gone out. And we have 9 days of early voting. And then of course we have election day. And so all of those things play into the election that didn't 10 and 20 years ago. And so all of those things are up for discussion as you look at your strategy there.
Yeah. As we look at the Democratic primary to be the U.S. Senate candidates, Abdul El-Sayed, a Democratic socialist, whether he calls himself that or not, who's out there saying free stuff for everybody, seems to be the front runner. I think it'll be a very close race between Mike Rogers, who is on glide path now to the Republican nominee. A close race in Michigan. We haven't had a Republican senator in what, 25 years? Something like that.
A long time.
Yeah, something like that. So it'll be a close race, but it seems to me the temperature of the country is turning away from democratic socialism in states like Michigan. Now, it might work in New York City. They might vote for it in Seattle. I don't know that they vote for it statewide in Michigan, but Abdul El-Sayed's advantage is that he has his roots in Southeast Michigan, where the majority of the voters live, right?
That's correct. And your phrase, it might work in New York City. I would say, is it though? Is it? But you're right. On election day, people get hyped up behind a candidate, right? And Abdul El Sayed does appear to have some momentum. And on MichiganNewsSource.com, we wrote several articles within the last couple of months where he's received some very, I would say, significantly disturbing endorsements, including 17 pastors here in Michigan, and then also a group called Jews for Abdul. So he's gaining momentum, but I believe in that Senate race, when you have, what was it, a week and a half ago, that State Senator Mallory McMorrow dropped out, leaving just Stevens and El Sayed, that is going to make a difference as we move into August 4th.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Meanwhile, Gary Peters, the current senator, did endorse Haley Stevens, right? I mean, that is,
yes.
Does it mean anything? I mean, Gary Peters is not, even today, I don't think, well known across the state of Michigan. Name recognition, I think, would be very low for a sitting U.S. senator who's been there for 2 terms, but maybe it has some significance. Last word to you.
I think it does. He had, my understanding, had pledged to kind of remain quiet in this race, and he came out. Several Republican strategists yesterday said this is a key indicator that the Democratic Party in Michigan is panicking. So we will see come August 4th.
Well, and that's what I would think, because I do not believe that Abdul El Sayed would win statewide. Could be a close race, but I don't think that Abdul El Sayed will attract voters from greater Michigan to the socialist playlist, or, I just don't see it. Anyhow, you can find out more about what Katie's doing and the entire team there at MichiganNewsSource.com. Keep up on Michigan politics and news that matters to the great state of Michigan. Katie, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, MichiganNewsSource.com. You can go check that out, MichiganNewsSource.com, my news company. Working hard to find the truth. The relentless pursuit of truth, that's what it is. Real, honest news. MichiganNewsSource.com. I'll be right back. All right, I'm going to go to Polymarket here for a second. Democrats would have to flip 4 seats in the United States Senate to take control of the Senate. And in order to do that, they will have to win in places like Ohio and Iowa. I don't see that happening. North Carolina seems to be leaning toward the Democrat, the former governor Cooper there. Other states pretty solid, but the states that are up for grabs, Maine, New Hampshire, Michigan, Ohio, Texas, and they even say Alaska. Alaska is not up for grabs. Alaska will not vote for a Democrat. Bank on it. They tell me that Peltola, but see, they have ranked choice voting in Alaska. Therein lies the problem. Ranked choice voting in Alaska could end up propelling somebody to a seat And Polymarket seems to give Patola the edge in Alaska. That would be outrageous for the people of Alaska. They don't even like Lisa Murkowski up there, to be honest with you. So for that to happen would be remarkable. The Polymarket prediction is for 51 Republican Senate seats when the dust clears. I think it might be a little bit better than that. I believe that a Republican can win in Michigan, and I believe a Republican can win in Georgia. And again, I look forward to whatever this conversation is going to be Thursday night with the president, because a lot of the focus is going to be on the state of Georgia and what went on there in the 2020 election. The president points to irregularities and has the documents. I'm told there could be millions of documents declassified and released. And there's also internet rumor, as I repeat myself, that these documents will show that Ossoff and Warnock were not legitimately elected in 2020. Now, Warnock was reelected in 2022, so that might be off the table. But if Ossoff did not win a legitimate election, that has to be challenged in court. It'll create a lot of disturbance going into the midterms. Never a dull moment on Daybreak. I'll be back. All right, welcome back to it. AI data centers, man, they are a point of contention for a lot of folks, aren't they? They sure are. And for a lot of folks, it's become a point of not in my backyard. My next guest, Patrick Hedger, NetChoice Director of Policy, joining me to discuss this and the building out of these data centers. Patrick, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. So when it comes to policy, different states approach it differently. Some places push back hard. They build the data centers anyway. Some places the pushback is hard and they don't build the data centers. Others contend that we must do this in order to compete with China and stay ahead of China. What about these data centers? What about the varying regulations? Let's start there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I understand folks have a lot of, legitimate concerns about rising electricity prices, water usage, and noise. But I want to assure folks that, data centers, there's no exemption from any sort of state, local, or federal law for data centers. They have to comply with all sorts of regulations related to pollution, noise, land use, water use, electricity use. They pay for their own electricity. And the data that we're seeing, the studies that we're seeing are showing that data centers are actually helping suppress the rise in electricity prices that we're seeing in this country. I find it really ironic that Maine was close to the first state to put a moratorium on data centers. There's practically no data centers to speak of in Maine, yet they have some of the most expensive electricity in this country. So obviously something else is going on, and data centers are being made the scapegoat.
Yeah, let me ask you that. How did data centers help the price of electricity? That seems counterintuitive, if you will.
Yeah, so electricity markets, they don't work the same way as, a lot of other commodities. There's two parts to your electric bill. There is what you consume, and then there is the fixed cost of the grid. And that fixed cost of the grid is a major part of your electricity bill. And data centers, as large customers, are able to absorb a lot of that fixed cost. And when I talk about fixed cost, I mean the actual cost of the power lines, the substations, the generation facilities. Data centers, electric utilities are able to spread out the cost onto those large customers, which are the data centers. So study after study is finding in states that have embraced data centers like Virginia, electricity prices have actually increased below the rate of inflation.
But they increase. I look at the state of Michigan where I live. Rate increases come pretty much every year now. And every time there's a new rate increase, they ask for another one due to the two big monopolies that run electricity in Michigan. And the same is true in many states. Electric prices today, compared to where they were 5 or 10 years ago, they've gone up dramatically already. So for a lot of people, it's going to be hard for them to believe that somehow a data center tapping into the electrical grid is going to save money for anybody.
Well, a data center can't stop politicians from putting mandates in place for renewable power when it's not appropriate for the grid at this point. That's what we're seeing that's really driving the increase in electricity prices is government mandates for where the electrons that actually go onto the grid are coming from. It's micromanagement of the electric power sector by politicians. That's really what's causing a major increase in prices, and the fact that we haven't had the appropriate investment necessary in our electric grid for the better part of the last half century. We've known this even prior to the advent of AI and the rise of data centers, that the grid is outdated. We lose a lot of electricity through radiation. It doesn't actually get to the end user. All of those things are costs that are rearing their ugly heads sort of at the same time as that we're building these data centers, and they're taking the blame for it.
So when it comes to the competition with China, because here's something that nobody's been able to explain to me yet. There's been, and I realize proposed data centers are not actual built data centers. 6,000 proposed. I don't know how many actually get built. What are they for? What do we need all these data centers for?
Well, we've been building data centers in the United States for the better part of the last 20 years at a pace of about one a week, opening a new one. And they're built to meet consumer demand. Forget AI for a second. Everything that you do on your phone, all the pictures, all your health records, your financial records, your ordering an Uber, ordering a package on Amazon, all of those things require a data center. And
all of those things work just, hold on, and all of those things work just fine for me right now. Why do we need this explosion in data centers? What are they for?
Well, I wouldn't call it an explosion in data centers. We're kind of building them at the same pace that we have for the last 20 years, which is, again, rising consumer demand as more things become digitized, as we reshore manufacturing, and manufacturing is increasingly powered by machines, machine learning. All of those things require data processing, storage, and doing it in a way that's secure. And there's also, you have redundancies built in. So when, if a data center does go down, if you need to reboot your iPhone, there's a backup. So it's all responsive to consumer demand. There's no building these pretty expensive pieces of infrastructure for fun.
Yeah. A lot of people still don't buy that, though, Patrick, because my phone works fine. My Uber shows up on time. My music plays fine. And so continue to build these out. Again, to what end? What capacity do we not have today that we have to have? I get that people are building more with digital and AI learning and so forth, but I'm still not sure, how many data centers do we need?
Well, that's sort of like saying, well, I was able to get on the internet with AOL back in the day. As functions and software and other devices and programs become more complicated and can do more and process more, you've got to be able to increase the computing power that's behind those things. So, saying that we can things work fine now is going to put us in a pretty bad place as other countries continue to innovate and catch up to where the United States is.
Well, I'm playing devil's advocate because these are the arguments that I hear from the people that watch and listen to this program and people online and social media. A lot of folks want to know what the need is. And so that's why I ask you. And a lot of them are concerned about coordination between your bank, your social media account, your cameras, your surveillance state. That's what people are concerned about, Patrick, the surveillance state. Should that be a concern?
Yeah, that's absolutely a concern, but that means, we've got to put good protections in place in terms of data privacy, data security. That's somewhere where Congress has fallen down, and, not building data centers is only going to lead to a future where the Chinese surveillance state dominates the future of the global economy. I don't think that's a good alternative. I think what we got to be doing is making sure that government is respecting the Fourth Amendment. And we saw a really good Supreme Court decision in the last week on that. And continuing to press for strong data privacy and data security provisions. But, forcing data centers to move overseas is not going to help people feel more secure.
Patrick Hedger, always a conversation of interest. Thank you for being here. He's the Director of Policy at NetChoice. Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take your feedback at stevegruber.com. Send me an email. What are your thoughts? Data centers good, bad? You're somewhere in the middle, you're not sure? We try to hash it out and give you just the information that you need, trying to get to the facts, to the bottom of the conversation every single day. It's the relentless pursuit of truth here on Daybreak. I'll be right back. All right, back at it now with the best part of the program, at least in my estimation. Ivy joining me now. Ivy, good morning again.
Good morning, Steve.
And how are you today? The sunrise, probably a beautiful sunrise there. It's going to be hot here and there and everywhere. You know, some people call it climate change. I just call it summer, you know.
You know, you tell me all the time, you know, when you were in the 70s, it was always like this. Brown
It
grass,
was hotter.
Sheets sticking
Yeah.
to your body, no air conditioning.
We had no
Super
air
hot.
conditioning. No, you'd roll over at night. The sheet would be stuck to your face. By the 4th of July, pretty much every year in the house that I grew up, the lawn would be like straw every year. And I noticed this change over the last 25 years in Michigan. Everything's green.
Yeah.
When we get more rain, and that's a bad thing. Well, it's warmer and we get more rain. Well, that's a bad thing.
Warmth and water create life, right? So not a bad thing
Exactly.
necessarily.
And soft grass, which is really important to me when I walk around barefooted. So there is that. What do you got for me?
Good grounding. I found it interesting that the governor of South Carolina had appointed Senator Lindsey Graham's sister. Did you see this?
Yes, he has.
Darlene Graham Nordone to temporarily fill their Senate seat following Graham's death. She'll serve in the interim until there's a special election held, and then that seat will be filled. But I didn't know if you knew this, but after their parents, Lindsay and Darlene's parents died, he adopted her and became her
I knew that.
legal guardian.
Yeah,
that's
he was
kind of interesting,
22,
isn't
she was
it?
13. Their parents died 15 months apart.
Mhm.
And upon the death, I believe, of his father second, Lindsay adopted her. She was only 13, he was 22.
Yeah.
I believe he was in the military at the time. And
The Air
she
Force,
said,
I believe.
the Air Force, right. And I've heard her say he came back every weekend because he was in the reserve. He wasn't, deployed overseas. And he would come back every weekend. He said, I promised to take care of you. And she said that was a promise that he kept. And look, I was not a big Lindsey Graham fan on a variety of topics. But on
Sure.
that,
This definitely
I
shows
give him great credit.
Yeah, it definitely shows the motivation of the heart there, which I really like.
Yeah.
So another interesting story, a man who authorities say lived illegally in Arizona National Forest for about 8 years has pleaded guilty to federal charges. According to court documents, 65-year-old Mark Aaron Gatz was found at an illegal campsite in Tonto National Forest after rangers received complaints about large structures and years of accumulated trash. Forest Service officers estimated the campsite contained about 1,000 pounds of debris, including
How do
tires.
you hold on. You're in a national forest and you go undetected for 8 years, almost a decade? How does that happen?
Good question, Steve. Good question.
nothing like
Could you
living
just
off the
imagine,
land.
though? Yeah, exactly. Living off the land. And, this guy. It had so his debris had tires, plastic bags, aluminum cans, motor oil. It's like, what would you need these for if you're just...
Well, he lived
hanging
there.
on? Yeah.
Who knows? He
okay.
lived there.
Maybe take care of your trash.
I would just say this: don't open my garage at the moment. All right? He didn't have a garage. He didn't have a place to put that stuff. Do not open my garage today because you'll be shocked by finding a lot of those same items.
This is true. I don't know what
Sorry.
happens in the winter, but the garage tends to be like a collection zone. And then it's
Well,
summer and you just want to be outside and enjoy outside and not, actually enjoy yourself rather than work.
I think the garage actually has a power. It has a tractor beam. And it'll
Of
just
junk
suck
and
things in during the winter, and then by the middle of the summer you're like, I can't even get through my garage. It's a
goodness.
place to collect. As George Carlin said, why do you need a bigger house? Because you have more, and you need more place to put it.
How
right?
is it that we
Anyhow.
begin to accumulate so much stuff? It is absolutely ridiculous. But I want to get to one more story before we run out of time.
All right.
The CNBC has released 2026 America's top states for business. You have any guesses on number one?
I'm going to give you 3 to choose from: Texas, Florida, Tennessee.
None of the 3. Ohio is number
Wow.
1.
Well, there you go.
North Carolina 2, Florida 3, Virginia number 4, Georgia number 5. Interestingly, I was surprised by this, but Michigan is number 6, Texas
Really?
number 7, Indiana number 8, Minnesota number 9, and Tennessee number 10.
We'll see all the
So
states I mentioned made the top 10, but
they
think
did.
about this. Michigan was the only state to raise income tax the last couple of years. If we didn't do
Yeah.
that, if we
Might be
did some
higher
of the things that
ranked.
Ohio is doing and Tennessee
Mhm.
is doing and Florida is doing, we'd be far better off in Michigan. Lower taxes, lower regulation, get rid of property tax like they just did in Florida and they're working on in other
Right.
states. That
Yeah,
is an
it's true.
attractor. That'll bring
Absolutely.
people here.
So this,
Yeah.
I always wanted to give you the metrics. CNBC said infrastructure carried the most weight in this year's ranking, reflecting the important business places on transportation, utilities, energy availability, and permitting. So, those top states having accessibility to all of those things. But I found that pretty interesting. Ohio being
I
our
do.
neighboring state, North Carolina, someplace that we love and have friends and family there. So we visit often. And Florida being my home state, where I was born and raised most of my life and still have family there. So I don't miss
Well,
living there, but there are very beautiful places in Florida.
Well, absolutely true. By the way, I just got a little note that Mark's garage is full too. Mark is one of millions of Americans that has a full garage. His happens to be full of Corvettes, so I guess he's
cool.
okay. Yeah, he just sent me a picture.
A lucky dog.
Yeah, that's why we love hearing from you folks. Look, send me an email, stevegruber.com. I don't want to hear about your garage necessarily, unless it's interesting. If you got a still out there, I'll look at that, whatever you might have. But,
That's an artist with bikes
yeah.
and workout equipment and
Yeah.
a Himalayan tar.
Yeah, a Himalayan tar lives in our garage,
Oh,
full body mount. Yeah, Sherm.
Not sure
He's
what you were
out there
thinking
just
there,
like
Steve.
this. Yeah, I might have overbuilt a little bit.
I think so.
overbuilt. Anyhow, Ivy, well, I'm away this week. Maybe the garage could get tackled before I get home.
Oh boy. I love you,
All right.
Steve.
Love you too. Yeah. Ivy says, I ain't cleaning the garage. Yeah. Apparently nobody is anytime soon. Anyhow, we'll take a break. Final thoughts after this. I'm going to close the program out today with some very good breaking news that has just crossed my desk, courtesy of Nick Hopwood, one of our regular guests here that talks about the economy. The inflation numbers are in for June. May was 4.2%. It had gotten a bit hot, all the way back down to 3.5%. The predictions were for 3.8%, but apparently we're in far better shape than we thought. Could that mean we're closer to a Fed rate cut? It would mean that, I would hope. Driving oil prices back up in the last 24 hours, or the attacks on Iran, but not as far as you would think. They went up about $7 a barrel, from $70 to $77, $78, $78 a barrel is where it got to 80. It cooled back off. Gas prices overnight went down a little bit across the country. We're not back to where we'd like to be, but that's good news. With those dynamics in mind, focus on core inflation, which strips out volatile food and energy costs. It fell to 2.6% for June, after rising 2.9% in May. So the inflation numbers are very good today, despite the ongoing hostilities in Iran. Kevin Warr is scheduled to appear before House lawmakers on the Financial Services Committee for a discussion about monetary policy and the future of the U.S. economy. Inflation is still above the Fed's 2% target rate. Signs the job market is picking back up as well. So this is all very good news. Fed policymakers will raise their benchmark interest rate or hold it steady after their next meeting July 29th. With inflation coming back to 3.5%, my guess would be it's going to hold steady. So there's some good news for you from the economic front. Despite the ongoing hostilities in Iran and oil prices higher than they were in February, we're still doing pretty darn good around here. What a country. What a country. Fight the good fight and keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is Daybreak. And remember, my friends, that only you can save America. Live from Washington, D.C., we'll see you again tomorrow.